Hi, team. Welcome to the Escape Podcast for Star Wars The Old Republic. Coming up, Knights of the Fallen Empire details on combat updates, planetary level sync, and tons of other stuff from the dev blog and stream this week. But first, other SWTOR news and a shout out to our guild Alea Iacta Est. Our broadcast astromech today is EPC 111, who will soon be loaded with this show recording, level synced with the cold, dark vacuum of deep space, and ejected in an escape pod. Good luck, buddy. With me, as always, is Seema. Hi, Seema. How's it going?
It's going well. I think I'm doing better than EPC 11, that's for sure. I am hanging out with you on Section X and not in the dark vacuum of deep space.
Yes.
Looking forward to a bunch of new stuff in 4.0, to which we have a lot of news about this week.
Yes,
so
we
that's
do.
good stuff. How are you doing?
I am doing good as well. I am, as you said, hanging out here on Section X because we're wondering what's gonna go on Section X with all the changes that are coming on. I don't think anything's gonna go on, but we'll talk about that. This week I did a little leveling of my Juggernaut, got that to 55. I had fun in Nightmare, Scum, and Villainy, and continued to get my tunes tuned up. I switched my Mercenary to Arsenal. I didn't get a chance to, I ended up having to tank last night, so I didn't get a chance to use it in the ops. But because a lot of that older content that we're going to is so much focused on switching targets and killing lots of little things, the burst of Arsenal I think is just going to be easier and work out better. So I'm going to give that a shot. Shot. Ha! But with that...
You're too funny.
I didn't mean that. That was accidental. But I cracked myself up. So I think we could talk about some news.
Now, an Imperial News Network report.
In news this week, the Galactus Gamers Coalition is having another podcast this month. It's a monthly podcast where a bunch of SWTOR podcasters all get together. And I hear there's going to be an awesome guest host this week joining the crowd.
I don't know about that. I'm sure there will be.
It's Seema. Seema will be on.
Oh, yeah.
The usual podcast guys will be hosting, and Marshall called us up and said, hey, somebody be on, and it's Seema's turn, so we're making Seema T-Witch jump on there.
Yes, yes.
You looking forward to that?
So, yeah, I thought it was a lot of fun last time. Marshall's a great guy. Tio's going to be on, and another great guy. I believe some people from, someone from Passionate Casual will be on, as well as, the other podcasts that you all know and love. So it's always a good time to talk to those guys.
Yeah.
I mean, more or less hang out and just give our opinions on stuff. It's yeah.
Right.
It's fun.
And hear all the podcasters together. That's cool. So what else we have in news?
Well, look, the launcher has a new look today. I mean, I don't know when they put it in, but I know yesterday when I logged in, it was the same old launcher, and today it's a new launcher. So, yeah, that looks very different.
I think it looks
So if you
cool.
haven't logged in yet
I
today,
really like
I mean,
it.
today being Monday because we record on Mondays, but yeah.
Yeah, I really like it. It's slick. It's more of the flat user. It's sort of the flat motif, less sort of like 3D borders and stuff like that, which is very sort of modern, new hotness of UI design of the moment. And
Right. It's more of a app type of design instead of like a old-timey game type of design.
so I certainly like it. Maybe we'll have to change our show video, our stream video to have a new little
we have to get
motif
modern.
to match. That would be cool. Also in news this week, we have cartel market changes that are coming down the pike. We got a big blog entry about what's going on with the cartel market, and many things are happening. I think we're going to talk about it more in a future show. We've got so much to talk about this week with the combat changes and the leveling changes. But they did things with the collections interface and rarity of packs and monthly packs and different size hypercrates, and we're going to I think that's plenty to dig into with that and some of the other economy things that we're going to see coming. So stay tuned for that next week or the week after.
Right. Also, there's going to be a cartel market sale this week, starting on Tuesday, October the 6th. Basically, all the cartel packs are going to be on sale. Like, anything that you might have missed, you can check it out and get it for a reduced price.
Yeah, or so they say. So yeah, I think you and I were questioning what do they mean by all
of the packs will be 33% off.
Yeah.
And the hyper crates will be 40% off.
So that'll be
interesting. So they say all cartel packs and all your favorite cartel packs. So, I'm reading that to mean all of them, all the cartel packs in existence, but
you said
I guess we'll find out tomorrow what it really means.
One side note that I thought was interesting about that in the blog post and then some follow-up even on Reddit of people answering questions was this guy named Dan Bunton, who's the developer or the designer in charge of the cartel market. He's getting himself out there and answering some questions and putting this news out there, and it was interesting to see him respond on Reddit and respond in the forums and talk to people. It's good to see more faces from the dev team out there and making news.
I agree.
Also in news, just a general shout out to our guild. We've got all our usual good guild stuff going on. I want to say thank you to our guildies. We wouldn't be doing this without you. And I wanted to be a little more explicit. The reason we do the show from week to week is to continue to attract people to the guild and have people come play with us. So to everyone not in AIE, don't forget that as coffee ramps up, that our guild AIE is always looking for new guild members on Jedi Covenant. The larger AIE guild is a very big family-friendly guild that spans many, many games and has many hundreds, if not thousands. I think there was a 1,000 or a couple thousand people in the guild across all of the games. But we have a solid community on SWTOR on both the Republic and Imperial sides on Jedi Covenant, and we would love to have people come join the guild and hang out in our mandatory fun nights and check in with our op teams or start your own op team with our help. Our guild forum and tools are all on aie-guild.org, and you can catch any of our officers in game by doing a /cjoin-AIELFO. And of course, thank you to the chat room. That is one of the most awesome parts of doing this live stream version of the podcast. I see we've got a big crew in there, some couple new names, a lot of the usual suspects. Hi guys, we'll catch up with you after, and we do a little chatting before. It's always fun. Thank you all for being there. But with that, we have tons to talk about that is going to be changing the game as we get to coffee.
Game changer.
Game changer.
Game changer for...
Game changer for the industry.
Yes, it is a game changer. I was thinking a little bit more like...
I am altering the deep. Pray I don't alter it any further.
But Seema said go more with the game changer idea for tonight.
Yeah. Yes.
So we heard a ton of stuff. So we are not going to be exhaustive. We're not going to repeat everything that happened when Eric Musco did the live stream. And there's 2 major blog posts that came out as well. But we're going to hit the highlights. We're going to talk about what caught our eye and a lot of the changes that we think are going to make a big difference. So to kick it off, there was the long blog post that talked all about what they called combat changes for the most part. One of the key things that they talked about in general was stat changes. So stat changes are going to be a central part of the way they're changing combat. And one of the key things they're going to do is take strength, willpower, cunning, and aim and change them all. So that's sort of the core stat for all the classes is going to be changed to mastery. So it's the idea that they all go away because it didn't really make sense. I guess you had to remember which was your main stat, but it was all just the base stat on all the gear. I heard some people sort of criticizing it. They're sort of like dumbing down the game. Except it was barely I guess it was maybe a mistake someone very new to the game could make. Otherwise, you just figured out which was the stat, and then you always had to just go look for that stat on anything that you got.
It wasn't really a decision point. Like you never had to choose between cunning and aim or whatever. You just always picked cunning if that was your stat.
Right. So that all changing to mastery also provides them some flexibility to have a piece of gear drop like a pirate hat and have it have mastery and power, and anybody can use it and anybody can roll on it. So that sort of simplifies that to some degree. What else? The only other note I saw with the base, sort of the core thing, was that endurance is giving slightly more health per point once you hit level 65. They said they felt the health totals were a little bit low. That to me sounds like a little bit of meta PvP tuning. Usually when they're changing how much health people have, how much endurance affects health overall in the overall health pool, they could tune the PvE encounters. The PvE encounters are usually tuned around a enrage timer. And if you have more health, or the boss has more health or less health, and the boss can still do spiky damage or not, that could be tuned up for you to have half the health pool you have or twice the health pool you have.
Mm-hmm.
However, in PvP, if they give you more health without affecting the damage, that changes the time to kill. So that feels to me like what they're doing with that.
True. Although another area of PvE is if we're going to all be running around in the future doing heroic 2s, maybe we just have a little bit more survivability doing that.
Maybe. We'll talk about all that level syncing going on.
Perhaps.
What about the secondary stats? Seema, what did you see that caught your eye?
So basically they've collapsed the surge stat into critical rating. So critical rating is going to not only be whether or not you crit, or your chance to crit, how much chance to crit you have, but the size, the amount of damage is added when you do crit. So that's going to be interesting. I think that's going to make some decisions on gear a little bit interesting, because we're going to be deciding with a new eye to the stats. Like before, power and crit directly competed, and now crit is going to be basically in a different position than power. So we might have mastery and power on everything, and then we'll have to choose between crit, alacrity, defense, absorb, or whatever. So the decision points will be different. So it might even be more tricky to make decisions now.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Yes and no. So I did like that they were elevating power. So power shares a slot with the tanking stats. So there's going to be either tanking or power. So you're not going to have to pick between like power and crit. So that's nice. Folding surge into crit is good. There will still be some bonus to having extra crit beyond 100% in certain cases, where you either get abilities that have maximum crit. And it's not the size of the crit that counts, it's the extra damage you do. something. Euphemism. But you'll still trade off between those secondary stats. You're still going to have accuracy, you're still going to have alacrity, and then you're still going to have crit that you're going to have to switch between. They did say that they're changing accuracy slightly, that base abilities now will go up to the match the special abilities that you had. So you always did 100. You had to boost yourself up to 100%, up from 90 to 100% on your base crit, and then from 100 to 110 on your specials crit. You're still going to need to go up to 110 on your specials crit, but now your base crit is going to come up along the way. The effect is going to be really minimal. In fact, people are sort of doing the math on what that's going to mean. It mostly means your sort of white damage on your base attack, like, for my mercenary, if he's going to do a little rapid shots, that there's still a sort of like a base chance to miss on some of that, and some of that's going to go away. I think it's going to be minimal. You're not going to really care about it, and you're going to just gear accuracy like you did before.
Yep, I think so too. I think this is just sort of a bringing everything in line kind of a change.
Exactly. So what else? Planet level sync. Let's talk about that, because this is a big one, and I think a lot of people are a lot of people have thoughts on this. So planet
And
level sync,
it's
yeah.
it's sync as a short version of synchronize. Like the level is going to be synchronized, and it's not sync like SINK, like you're going to sync when you do this.
Well, who
It's not like
knows?
a credit sync. You just want to use up all your credits. Yeah.
So what's going to happen is any of the what they're calling core worlds, which I think what they mean by this is anything below Rishi. So Ilum and down, any of the places where you were leveling up and you were doing the class stories. All of those, when you go to that planet, your level will be if you're over the level for that planet, your level will be decreased to the maximum level where you still gained experience on that planet. So your level sync down to all the planets now when you go to that planet. So what this means is that as you go and do heroics on those planets, as you go back and mess around with trash on those planets, now everything that was just one shot and couldn't do any damage to you, it can again. You're still at the maximum level range, and you still have all of your whatever level, say you're level 65 and you have all your abilities unlocked. You're still going to do you have all of your abilities, your set bonuses, all of your passives, all of your utilities, all of that. So you still will be quite powerful. And if what we saw in the stream when Eric was going through and playing was true, you're still going to be quite powerful, but it matters. It's not, you're not one-shotting things, you're not immune to all damage. This does a couple things, I think. I think it makes it more interesting to go and help other people that are doing things on low-level planets. And it also makes it interesting if you were going to go and bother doing some of those repeatable heroic quests on the lower level planets. Now we'll talk about the heroic quests in just a second, because I think there will be reasons to go and do that. But the general angst is a lot of people are somewhat upset that this is a permanent change and it's not something you can shut off. There's discussion in the forums and on Reddit, people saying, "Oh, this is horrible. I like going there and just one-shotting everything and having nothing do damage to me." I've sort of come to terms with it. I sort of am starting to even like the idea, and I never really had much use to go back and just do one-shot things. So I don't know. I when I do ever go to any of those old planets, even when I'm leveling up, there's nobody there. So all the people that in theory like to have that feeling, I don't think very many people are spending time on those lower level planets one-shotting trash mobs. But I get the idea that people would like it to be optional. What are your thoughts, Seema? What are you feeling as far as that goes?
Well, when they first mentioned it, I kind of got a sinking feeling because I don't, in general, like to go back to content that should be easy now, but it's like artificially made hard. But the more I thought about it, and also too after watching the live stream of Eric doing it, I don't think it's going to be an issue. I think it's going to be fine. And I think basically since they're giving presumably they say they're giving rewards that will be valuable to us at our current level, then I don't mind that there's a trade-off there. And then put together with what you said, we're still going to have all of our abilities. We're still going to be able to outrun mobs on our fast speeders. We're going to be able to, if you bought the ability, you'll be able to still have your zero cooldown quick travel. I mean, there's going to be ways to get everywhere very easily. So I don't think it's going to be like the sort of mass tedium that it has turned into in other games. I think it's been implemented. I'm excited about the way it was implemented. It seems like they really took into account what the player experience was going to be doing this. So I'm a fan now. I'm a cautiously optimistic fan about it. We'll see how it works out.
I think in 6 months we won't even think about it, and it'll just be the way it is, the way things are. You can tell it is the way it is because the way it is. I do wonder how it's going to work for like those planets that have level 50 areas stuck in there. Yeah.
Like Narshada, where the bonus area is 10 or 12 levels above the leveling area.
Or Commanders.
Like the effect it'll have on world PvP on if there is, I mean, maybe there will be some now. I don't know.
Yeah, Rube in the chat room made that point. I wasn't thinking about that. I think it'll have a positive effect, if anything,
Yeah.
because you won't have level 65s coming down to Tatooine and just pounding on, especially on a PvP server, pounding on people for lulls. They still will be relatively powerful and they could travel in packs, but you could have more interesting world PvP then going on. But yeah, I think we'll have to see how all the details work out. But how it's
And
gonna,
the other thing is, it's a different way to level. So like, say you're leveling your third or fourth person, and you don't want to go with Mar and Neil before the Emperor this time. You're going to get experience for these heroics, so maybe that's what you want to do. Go hang out on some old planets with your friends, and you'll still get experience.
sure. Now you can go down and do the heroic quests, and they are restructuring the way the heroic quests will work in a few different ways, which I think is interesting, and we might as well talk about it now, although they also talked about it in their other blog post. But one of the things that will be key is the heroic quests will be focused on they'll be releveled. That's part of that new leveling experience. So you're going to have to, actually do work to complete them. But all heroic 4s are changed to level 2, to heroic 2s. They're adding the idea that most of them or all of them will be those immediate completion style quests, so you don't have to go, drive your way back to a quest giver. They're adding a heroic mission terminal so that although you can still go to the mission giver to get the heroic quest, you'll also now have a heroic mission terminal with a listing of all the heroic missions on all the planets. And when you pick up that mission, they're also adding a teleport to heroic mission area as an item in your mission tab, which is pretty cool. And they're adding all new rewards. Now, the one downside of the one other edge to this that I saw in the notes is they're saying that they're now repeatable weekly. And they sort of threw that in on the side. And when I thought about it for 2 seconds, I realized, well, today they're repeatable daily. Now, repeatable weekly makes it sound like they will no longer be repeatable daily, for one. But on the flip side, now we have all of these heroics available to us. They'll all be giving us rewards. And those rewards that they give will be the comm crystals, the new comm crystals, and a box that drops an item equivalent to your actual level, not your level down level. So it's rewards potentially that matter. Now, we could still out-level the crystals and not need those crystals at some point and not need the gear.
Sure. Yeah.
But when you do need it, you'll have all of these heroics to choose from, and you'll be able to go around, have reasons to go to these lower level planets and do this stuff, and that sounds interesting to me. Are you going to be going off and doing heroics on these lower level planets?
Well, I am definitely. I mean, I did before. Like before, when we had planetary comms, I did go and do heroics on Tatooine on my max level character at the time, to prepare for leveling an alt, so that alt would be able to. I'd buy gear for that alt with those comms. So I'm not averse to going back and doing content on old planets, especially repeatable content. I don't have much interest in going back and doing the planet arc again, but I don't mind doing the repeatable, the heroics, the dailies stuff. So yeah, I'm sure I will be doing that. How about you?
It'll depend. It'll depend on how easy it is to gear up and how quickly that the gear and comms flow and what comms you get and what gear you get in those heroics.
So for you, it'll be based on the
reward.
How interesting the rewards are. Yeah.
Right. And if it is interesting, then yeah, maybe I will do a couple, gear up some alts that way. That I'm not averse to that. And I'm also not averse that if it is something interesting and there is a reason for me to want to go and do it, that I will have to do a little bit of work to go and do it. When I was doing the staged weeklies on Makeb, for example, I was at the top level range, but the heroics on Makeb could still damage me, and I could still die if I did one of those heroic 4s badly. on Makeb when I did the stage weekly on my
Right.
60, and that
Right.
was okay. That was okay with me.
Yeah.
I was,
Yeah.
in fact, it was slightly more interesting to have a little bit of a challenge, especially I got a kick out of doing the heroic fours and having to like CC a guy, or and like kill the weak, kill him in order and focus damage and that kind of stuff. I felt like I'm not just I'm not just do sweeping blasters over and over, earthquake, 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 everything's dead.
Right. Right.
And I take zero damage, or just shoot once and Treek kills them all. I'm okay with it actually being a thing and having to do a little bit of work. So that's fine with me.
One thing I did notice, and I went back and looked at the stream, when he goes to the mission terminal and he scrolls through all the planetary heroics that he has on his level 60 character, and I like paused and looked as he was scrolling through, and the planets went from like Dromankaz or Coruscant up to like Corellia. So I don't think this new system is going to, at least out of the gate, I get the feeling that it won't affect Section X and Black Hole, and that they'll still have some four-mans, and that things like the HK-51 questline that has some four-mans at the end, I think those will still be four-man. I mean, I'm just speculating.
Yeah,
I have no
it's speculation at this point, but yeah.
inside info or anything, but yeah. Which I'm fine with, except for Section X. I wouldn't mind if you could solo that one, but
right.
But heck.
Or at least two-man it. And I'm fine with two person. It's trying to get a group of 4 to go in and do that thing. That's effort.
Yeah, it is effort.
Effort. So that doesn't happen for me.
But I really, really like the fact that the heroics are all going to be accessible from one terminal on the fleet. You can still get them from the NPCs out there, but you could pick them up on the fleet. You can travel right to the area where the thing is. I mean, so your gameplay for these heroics is going to be actually doing the heroics. It's not going to be like 5 minutes of getting there and then 2 minutes of heroic and then 5 minutes of getting to the next one and then 2 minutes of that heroic. It's going to be, most of your gameplay is actually going to be playing. So I think that's a great improvement.
Right. I agree. I think that's going to be interesting. The next one they had in that blog post was experience and grouping. I didn't see anything too earth-shattering in there. Just that they're taking out, there was a little bit of a penalty in grouping, that you would take a little bit less experience because the experience was sort of shared across the group. Now, doesn't matter if you group up, it doesn't reduce your experience at all. Everybody gets maximum experience. I think that's a great idea. They should have been doing that anyway.
I think also it used to be that if you had a really high level character in your group, that made that XP penalty even worse. And the level sync is going to affect that now, because it'll still affect the amount of XP you get, but that person will be in your level range. You won't be counted as a level 65 character, so that'll help.
Yeah. Tell me about temporary ability bars, Seema.
So okay, I think this is kind of cool. So they use the example of heroic. What's it called? The ability that heroic moment. That if you have your companion out, you can, during heroic moment, you can use all your abilities that you've earned from all your other characters. But I never really actually used that because I didn't want to put them all in a button. And now a little temporary hotbar will come up with all the ones you've earned. Like if you have the, the nuts kick from your scoundrel,
Nuts
or
kick.
project from your sage or whatever. A little hotbar will come up and you can click on those abilities while you have heroic moment up. And so I think for someone like me that didn't have buttons for him, and I'm a keybinder, that'll make it. I'm so much more likely to use that ability. Plus, it'll be fun. It's fun to do other, abilities from other classes from time to time. I just think it's a fun addition. And then they also kind of hinted that there'll be other types of things going on that will use temporary abilities, which is intriguing.
Exactly. That's what intrigued me the most about that, was that little end comment where they said, yeah, you know, new possibilities for us to do some more interesting content. What that sounds to me like is new boss encounters where you'll get, you know, extra ability or two on your bar that you'll have to do something with as part of the encounter. Now
I mean, I hope we will be able to keybind, you know, temporary hotbar key 1 and, you know, temporary hotbar key 2, because
yes,
yeah, I am a keybinder, but
and they said
yeah.
that explicitly in the blog post. They said
I
you
missed
can assign your own key
Yay.
bindings to these buttons. So that will be awesome. Ability replacements, that was a little change they said they've made in there. They're just going to change it right in your hotbar for you when you have an ability that replaces another ability, like, I don't know, what is, like, whatever the, you know how they gave some of those abilities at level 60 or on your path to 60 that just replaced,
Right.
like, Blazing Bolts replaced Sweeping Blast, or replaced Unload. So you never use
Right.
Unload anymore because Blazing Bolts replaced it. It's just going to replace it on your bar. And if you switch specs, it'll put Unload back in that slot. Okay, that's fine. Companions, we talked a little bit about this in the past. They did do clarification in the blog post about companions, and Eric Musco showed off some of the companion stuff. There was one really cool thing that I certainly want to talk about that we saw in the stream, which is they will be adding a new type of companion that will show up in cartel packs, which is a regular, fully operational combat companion that can play all the roles, because now new companions in Knights of the Fallen Empire can be switched back and forth out of combat to tank, healer, or DPS spec. But the cartel pack companion that he showed off was an Ack Dog. And it was a big one. It's about, you know, it comes up to like your waist or your shoulder even. It's a big Ack Dog that acts as your companion, does all the roles. It doesn't have a class story, and you can't make it go sell trash and stuff. But look, I can't wait to get an Ack Dog and other animal pets. So
Yeah, it was about half. I would say it's like halfway the size between the size of a pet, like a companion pet, a mini pet, a vanity pet, and a mount.
yeah. So it was not that tiny pet size. In fact, I want to get an Ack Dog, and then I want to get an Ack Dog pet, and I'm going to have them both out, and it'll be like a big brother and a puppy, and they're my buds, and they do all my fighting for me.
I totally want an Ack Dog mount. I know, and an Ack Dog pet. That would make me happy.
Yeah. Other companion stuff that I think we've talked about most of this before, but they gave a little bit more detail. There's going to be a contacts and alliance window. So it's going to be expanded from just here's your companions. You're going to have companions, and you're going to have this alliance window that's going to have all of the other sort of quote unquote companions available to you. So I think, say you're a Jedi Knight and you have Lana Beniko, that's a companion of yours. She's not really a companion. I think that's why they're going with this contacts and alliance deal, that she's now an alliance that you have, and she'll come, you know, act as your companion because she's part of your contacts and alliance. So that's cool. They did say that these companions, you know, the way companions work in Knights of the Fallen Empire is that they can play all three roles. All of them can. They'll be able to DPS, heal, or tank, but you can only switch them out of combat. So Treek is special in that you can switch between tank and heal stance in combat. I think a couple people were making the comment that, okay, well, that's a little bit of a switch with these other companions. Having that ability to switch in combat every once in a great while is somewhat interesting. I think it's going to be fine just having the three specs. Anything else that was interesting to you there in companions, Seema?
Just that they did, well, not in the blog post, but in the live stream, he did say that there's, you know, a big difference between companions that are, you know, fully blown companions, and then companions that are just in the story, like Mar is just in the story.
Right, exactly. So that was the blog post for the combat changes. Then they had the blog post for the core worlds change that they were talking about. And in that one, they talked a little bit more about what the difference is between the way you deal with 12x XP now and what's going to happen in Knights of the Fallen Empire. And the deal there is 12x XP is going away, but instead it will be still accelerated leveling. And what you're going to be able to do is just focus on what they're calling sort of the critical path missions as you go up. Get a little bit of streamlined leveling experience, not as fast as 12x XP, just your class story. It'll be class story plus the core story of the planet as you go through. And the reason they want to do that, and I think it makes sense, there's sort of lore stories as you're going along, things that happen on Belsavis, for example, that are pretty important, that beyond just your class story, that you'll want to be part of that core leveling mission. Those are now all going to be called critical path. And as you're looking at those missions, they'll get their own little icon. It'll be the critical path icon on the mission. It's going to be a little purple triangle instead of the gold one today. Then they've got those heroic ones that we talked about, and the heroic missions and all the new stuff around the heroic missions and the heroic mission terminal. And then all the stuff that's not critical path or heroic that you can still go and do if you feel like it on any of the planets that you're never going to outlevel anymore is going to be called exploration missions, and they're going to get the regular gold triangle with a little star on the side of it. So these three classes will now make up that sort of leveling experience, and I think that's an interesting way for them to handle it. So it's still a little bit quicker than it was in the past, but it's not 12x XP, and now you've got these new classes of categories of what's going on in terms of the missions you could be going after. If you just want the streamlined experience, just go after the purple ones, go back and do the heroics if you want the extra rewards, etc., etc. So what do you think of that stuff?
I really like this change because it's a sort of typical way of doing questing where you get to a new quest hub, you run around, pick up all the quests, and then you start doing them sort of in the order of what's closest to the area, and then work your way back. I always felt like it was so choppy, like there was no I couldn't keep continuity on the story because I'd be like I'd be partially saving this person, and then I'd kill a bunch of Sleens, and then I'd be, investigating this person, and then I'd be like disabling radio transmitters, and then I would go turn all that in, and then I would go talk to someone about the person I just rescued. And I really like that I can walk into a quest area and I'm going to say, today I'm not doing exploration quests, so don't even talk to those guys. In fact, maybe I just want to do class story today, so I'm only going to talk to those. And I mean, that's just a great change for me.
Yeah. Yeah, and you made a point on this that I thought was great, which was it seems like they really spent a lot of time thinking about how this kind of stuff should work, how this should work, how the heroics should work, how you should be able to get back and forth easily, how turn-ins should work, and it's something that I appreciate.
Yeah.
I think it's obvious that they are thinking hard about this stuff, and great. It makes me optimistic for what they're doing to the game and what they're going to be doing going forward. I like it.
It really feels like there used to be sort of an attitude of, if it works, then we're happy with it. And now it seems much more, let's make it intuitive and smooth and fun, and I like that.
Let's see what else. So those were the two main blog posts, and then we had the whole stream that Eric did, and I would encourage people to go and look at it. You can see some cool stuff that goes on as he does his stream there. He talks about and he shows the creation of a new level 60 character, and they threw in the little tidbit that if you already have a cap of 22 characters on a particular server and you get a new level 60 character, don't worry, because they're automatically going to give you a new slot for that character. And as part of that, they're going to up the limit. They don't know exactly what to yet, but somewhere around 40 or 50 characters, and you'll be able to unlock additional slots off the cartel market. So everybody that thought they had the server all filled up and they had no more space and their leveling was all done. They never had to worry about bothering to level another character. Nope. You can keep it rolling. Now you can put 50 characters per server and get them on all the servers, and you will be golden. He also showed off the level 60 gear that you get. It's 188 blue gear that's legacy bound that you get on your new level 60 character if you choose to get one of those. He showed off, you can shut it off, but there's a tutorial mode as you create your new level 60 character, which basically walks you through, and a lot of MMOs I've seen do this. It leads you slowly into all of your new abilities and only gives you a couple at a time as you sort of complete the beginning few levels or whatever you're going into of the story content of the tutorial, so that you sort of learn the class if you haven't learned it before, but you can skip that. And you get all your companions and all your crew skills, but you also get all of your class story already marked as sort of completed. You're not going back and doing your class story as part of that. Which also led to the comment around, so that's all completed. What does that mean when you get to Knights of the Fallen Empire and you start that story? That also, starting Knights of the Fallen Empire, starting that story, completes everything that you should have done before, and you can't go back and do it. You can't go back and do Shadow of Revan. It's all just marked as completed at that point. You can't go back and do your class story. It's marked as completed. Now your character has progressed into the Knights of the Fallen Empire chapters. Now, there was some cool things that he was showing around starting the story and getting out of the story and going back into the story. Why don't you talk a little bit about that, Seema? Because you mentioned some things that I thought was cool.
So there's going to be you'll be able to jump into your story at any time. You don't have to open up your quest log, scroll down, look for the story area in quest log, and then click on a quest. You can just hit a play button, and that'll start the story wherever you left. It'll come up with a little title page first. It tells you, chapter 1, or gives you information about where you are in the story. But then you can go right into it from there, and you don't have to make sure you have the right companion with you or anything like that. I think that is going to be another sort of little quality of life thing. I don't have to figure out which quest, then travel somewhere to get there, or some ship that I have to find on my galaxy map. It's just, I'll go right there, which I like.
Yes, so do I.
In case you didn't catch that.
Yep, I agree. Couple other tidbits just to sort of wrap it up here. I think we'll have to dig into more of like the crafting in a future podcast as well, but he talked about legendary status, which is a new sort of an achievement level that you'll get with a cool icon in game next to your name if you've finished all 8 class stories. I thought that was sort of neat. He showed off the new interface editor, which has a snap to grid function. I'm hoping there's even a little bit more detail in there of some more things we can customize in the interface. We just got a quick look at it. But at least snap to grid is nice, being able to have a little more functionality in that. He did talk to somewhat about crafting, gathering, how crafting and gathering is going to work. But yeah, maybe we'll talk about that next week.
There's going to be a blog coming out with more information on the crafting.
Yeah.
And I think that'll be in time for our next show, so
yeah, we'll
maybe do a deeper dive then.
Yeah, because they're making changes to sort of how gathering works at all the levels, and there's still the cap of 500, and so yeah, you can hear some of the details that Eric talked about, but we'll wait till we get the full details in the blog post. They reiterated in the legacy datacrons that's all going to be retroactive. Any datacrons that you currently have now are going to give you credit in sort of your legacy version of those datacrons. Speeder piloting at level 1, so no more having to wait till you get to level 10 or 15 to get speeder piloting. So speeder piloting 1 is unlockable at level 1 now. And capes are fixed. Cape clipping in through mounts is fixed on most. He said they said most capes, so I don't know. Maybe there's some they haven't gotten to yet, but.
Yeah, maybe there's some cape/mount combinations that they haven't gotten to, but yeah.
Right. So if you have not obeyed Edna mode and you're wearing a cape for some silly reason, you can now feel free to be able to mount in your mounts and not have that hanging down. I have a couple of the either all of the big mounts and things like the Corellian Star Drive flash mount that sort of hover off the ground, but you're sort of enclosed. Having that cape hanging down below really did. I really hated that. So
Really cramps your style.
And they did reiterate that the companions do have an outfit tab. Gear doesn't matter for companions anymore, but they do have the ability to change their look by having an outfit tab. But when he showed it in the stream, and I don't know if you saw this, Seema, but it looked like a regular gear tab where you were dropping gear pieces in there, and not stamping it in like the costume designer.
Right. It did look like they were dropping in, so like some people said, I think you will be able to maybe store your PvP gear on Mako or something like that.
Right. So that does seem like a little extra, which I do currently. So I'm hoping I can still do that. I don't store PvP gear there, but I have a couple old gear sets, some cool old gear sets on some companions as a storage.
I mean, one thing I was watching for is whether you would still have all the options that we're used to now, like unify to the chest color and turning off the helm. And he didn't really address that in the live stream. He didn't show that, but there was the little icon of the little outfit icon down by the sat summary thing. So I have hope.
Yeah. Yeah, I think hopefully you'll be able to customize it as much as you want, at least as much as you can now.
Yeah.
And finally, why don't you wrap it up, Seema, with the new vendor that we're going to get. So they're reorganizing the vendors slightly down in the cartel market, but they're adding a new vendor, which I think is pretty interesting.
They're adding a new vendor, which will take current event currencies, so like bounty contracts, currency from the Gree and from the Rakghoul, to be able to buy stuff from events that no longer run, like the Chevan event. But most exciting of all, the original Rakghoul event. So we'll have a way of buying the original Containment Officer gear set that was available in that event, and which is, I don't know, it has a place in my heart. It was the first set of cool gear that I got, and I think I got it all except for on one character. I didn't start soon enough, so I didn't get the bracers or something. So yeah. I'm looking forward to being able to fill in that.
You'll also be able to buy with those tokens the Harati Scrapper mount, which is
and red sparkle powder.
And red sparkle powder. Okay. Red sparkle powder aside, the Harati Scrapper mount is a favorite of of many people's. It's the broken down mount from the Chevan event. Recently, it was upgraded to be a 110 speed mount. If you had it, it was sort of precious. It was really unique in the game. I'm a little sad it's not going to be as unique in the future. It is going to be relatively expensive, though. I don't know if you noticed when they said what it was looking like to purchase the things was it's not just going to take some bounty contracts or some Rakghoul plague canisters or whatever. It's going to take some of each. So you're going to have Grey Helix components and completed bounty contracts and Rakghoul whatever's. And it seemed like a relatively significant amount for some of this stuff.
Well, and it is Hirati Scrapper, not
Scraper.
Hirati Scraper, as Eric was calling it, because he says it scrapes along the ground.
That's not it. It doesn't scrape along the ground. There's sparks coming out of it, but not because it's scraping on the ground. It's the Scrapper.
I make fun of Eric for that, but I think he did a really great job in the live stream, and I recommend everybody to watch it. There's a lot of content in it, and they posted it. You can watch the whole thing, but they also have posted it to the side. Once you start it, you'll see it to the side. There's sections of it. So if you only want to watch the part about when they talk about experience, or if you only want to watch when they talk about the heroics, you can zero in on that. You don't have to watch the hour or so of the gameplay if you've already seen that many times.
Right.
So I thought that was, see, that's another thing where they're saying somebody is thinking, how is it more convenient for them to consume this info? So I like it.
Yes. And you're right. It was serious business Eric Musco in this stream in a good way.
A new serious Eric. Yeah. Right, in a good way.
He was down to business. He had a bunch of content to go through. He was very super informative. Not like he's never informative, but sometimes he's more sort of rah, this is cool stuff. Let's goof off a little bit. This was
right.
Lots of information, lots of showing off interesting things that people actually wanted to see, revealing information that was key to the game. He had a whole list and he checked off his list, and he was down to business. So good job. I really like that. You made that point earlier. I did appreciate that as well.
Yes, more like that, Eric. Good job.
Yes, more of those. But with that, I think we are wrapped up for this week. I'm glad we had a ton of information. We're going to have a ton more next week and leading into coffee. We're finally getting this information that we've been dying for quite a while, and it's made me pretty excited. So I'm happy that we've got exciting things to talk about. But our EPC 111 droid is not as excited because he is now level synced to the cold, dark vacuum of space. So we will say goodbye to him as he blasts off in the escape pod. But we'll also say thanks to all of you out there for joining us, either on newoverlords.com, iTunes, YouTube, or live as we're broadcasting this now on Twitch. We will stream again next week on Monday night on twitch.tv/newoverlords around 10:30 p.m. Central. And please follow us on Twitter at MaxTheGray and at AISEMA. Or, as I said, find us on Jedi Covenant and ask us for an AIE Guild invite. That is the reason we do this. And we will talk to you soon.
Later, everyone.